All right, so about now, um, perhaps you see why I began reading those lyrics at the beginning of our time together today. You think about the connection, right? And as you just got back from listening to the whole song that was there at the end of that portion of the lecture for today, um, that song, Rapper's Delight, is all about having fun, right? Even as it is non-whimsical, the lyrics don't really make a whole lot of sense. But the whole point of the music is to make you move, right? And in fact, where are my lyrics? He says that right there at the beginning of the song. He said, "Now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet." That's the whole point, make you dance. So anyway, um, these right, I'm talking about DJ Kool Herc ending out there, 77, kind of declining. Still very much on the scene, but still not as popular. Not the only one. He didn't have a corner on the market, so to speak, by this point in time. This is some of the beginnings of the culture of hip hop. So as you have this DJ and the idea of the DJ whipping up this funky music and people dancing to it, there is also a growing aesthetic of graffiti art. Graffiti art. Now, for many of us, when we think about graffiti, we think about throwaway art. If we think about it as art at all, right? If anything, right, it's more like a nuisance or a destruction of property, especially for those of us who are law and order people, right? Law and order folk, abide by the law. And so to do graffiti is to deface, um, it is to deface property, is to devalue something that does not belong, something that does not belong to you. But you have here young people, right? Just bear in mind, all these people are young. These young people who are creating tags in which they are establishing themselves as young artists. Um, they also are developing reputations, right? They have reputations just like the dancers, DJs, and MCs, but theirs, right, is opposed to being in some other kinds of places are seen on buildings, bridges, and trains. It takes an enormous, right? I do want to say this, it takes an enormous amount of courage to turn, right, to get and to do an overpass, a bridge, or um, water tower, to turn those things into a canvas, right? I'm often amazed, there's so many places where, oh, that's graffiti. And I find myself, I personally say, well, how did they get there? I don't, I'm like, I don't see any possible way of getting there. Not, unless so you have people coming in the dead middle of the night, climbing heights that most of us are not okay with climbing, and taking all kinds of risks in the name of in the name of their art, working under pressure and often in extreme conditions. There emerge one more element right to this culture of hip hop. This it is creative, yes. But there is also right another spirit at work, and I think going to take us and still dealing with these different elements of hip hop culture, but to kind of delve into another kind of the undercurrent thereof, like one of boldness and undeniability, brashness. Some might say arrogance or cockiness, but whatever it is an attempt by people, right? It's an attempt by people who have been whisked away through social programming, geographical boundaries, poverties, and the ills that accompany poverty, to be seen and heard in the world. Right? I don't want to just be heard. I want to be seen. I don't want to just be seen. I want to be heard. Right? The old saying that children ought to be seen and not heard. I mean, what is that? What is that really saying? All that is a loss of agency when one can be seen and not heard. And even in some instances, right, it is supposed. I think about what um, it was told to on the movie The Butler, and it was told to the main character as he was going into service work. He was told it should be as if you're not even in the room, right? And so that in and through service, there's a certain sense of invisibility that is there. And the kind of invisibility that is created by uh, ghettoizing persons, by placing people in a particular location when everybody, certainly looks like you, everybody is coming from the same background as you, when folk all live in this slum, there is a certain sense of invisibility. Don't nobody care about me, right? The schools are broken down. The government doesn't. We are invisible, and so we know how to make ourselves visible, and we also know how to make ourselves be heard, right? Tag a building, right? Tag a building, draw, aerosol, a portrait, a self portrait, or a portrait of somebody else, or of something that you find to be beautiful. In a world in which a person is a nameless other, it feels good to ride in a car or on a subway and see one's name, design, or tag and know to whom it belongs. I mean, I imagine there's really no other feeling like that than say, I know who that was me. Or even if it wasn't you, right? It was your homeboy, it was your homegirl, right? That there's even with there a sense of connection, a sense of pride that goes along with seeing someone else's work that is being so proudly displayed by the building. Some would say nuisance, others would say that it was an opportunity to build self worth on buildings and other structures that had even been abandoned, right? Because we're talking about at this time where there are many buildings that are not being attended to, buildings that are purposely being burnt down or burnt out. They're not burnt down, but they're burnt out. And so you have all this blight, this dilapidation around you. So why not draw on the building? Right? That's kind of the thought pattern. And so we might really even think of it as decorative. Okay, decorative. Now, these last four elements that KRS-One adds to this standard list of four, that fifth one is beatboxing, and I don't think we have to really spend too much time talking about that. Probably the most famous beatboxer is Dougie Fresh, right? The human beatbox was, or actually is his nickname. But these last four on that list that I gave you earlier, and I will read again, may be thought of as the embodiment um, of ethos expressed in rhymes, beats, graffiti, and even dancing. Right? These other elements are the lived experience of hip hop that advances it beyond party culture to actual culture. So, right, we're talking about DJ Hurt and the creation, the beginning of hip hop, and right, this is all begins with some turntables, some speakers, a girl who's trying to. A girl who's trying to get clothes to go back to school so she can be fresh, right? It starts with a party and then it continues into a party and how we do parties, right? And creating this wonderful atmosphere. KRS-One says of peace, love, and community, right? Bringing folks together, even having a way in which the gangs of that area are now able to interact and cease being gangs, move more to being crews, right? And cease the certain high levels of violence, and so hip hop has this wonderful, right? It has this wonderful effect, has this wonderful effect, but it now moves right beyond party culture to actual culture, I would say, in these last four elements: street fashion, language, knowledge, and entrepreneurialism, right? In many ways, are about fashioning the world into something that can be lived in rather than just something to survive, right? So if you think about the message, right, you think about the message dropping in 1982, and it says, "Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. We're trying not to lose our heads." Ah, ha, ha, ha. Right. So you've got that lyric that's dropping there like that. But then you also have others who are talking about they are trapped in this space, even at that point. But then you think about even someone now in the 2008 album by Young Jeezy, The Recession, he talks about let it circulate. One, talking about the dollar, let the dollar circulate. He names his album The Recession. As we come out of the domain and the rule of George W. Bush, who plummets the nation into a deep recession, and then you've got President Obama who then has to come in and clean up this mess, right, and try to stimulate the economy. But where does that affect? Once again, it affects then these pockets that were already poor in those times when recession hits. The poor get even poorer, right? So the 70s is the time of the recessions. The 2000s, the first decade of the 21st century, the second millennial, I guess the third millennial, um, these first years are also in recession, right? And you got Jeezy, right? Then touting the same kind of thing and moving beyond wanting to do something beyond just partying, right? Just partying, having a good time. Definitely an important thing to do, but now creating an actual culture so that the world can be something to live in rather than just survive. We don't just want to survive. We want to, even as Jesus says on that same album, I need a vacation, right? There is something about then taking the world and making the world rather as something that is palatable for you as opposed to attempting to scratch and eke one's way out in a world that is anti you, right? That is anti your being, that is anti your flourishing, that is anti um, your existence, right? And so, in so many different ways, when we add these four different elements to hip hop, beyond the breakdancing, the DJing, the MCing, um, and the like, beyond that, the party. Right now, you have this entrepreneurialism. Right, we're starting businesses. It's a street entrepreneurialism. Right, we're starting businesses. No matter what way we have to do it, we're going to start businesses to support ourselves and to come up out of whatever it is that we have been in, and that may be legally, but it also may be illegally, right? When we talk about a street business could mean, um, take for instance on the show The Wire, you have the character Bugs who starts a street business in which he sells T-shirts on the street. We're all familiar with the bootleg man who comes around and sells. You have those persons who sell cologne in barbershops. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways, what we call hustles, right? Hustles in order to make this thing happen. So KRS-One says this, and this is a way, right? When we think about the hustle, when you think about the hustle, what that is doing is saying, I don't, some folks say, I don't want a 9 to 5, right? I don't want to be at someone else's beck and call. I want somebody to tell me when I'm to come in and when I'm to go out, where I need to be, and what things I need to accomplish for the day. I'm gonna do that for myself, right? So that's then taking and fashioning one's own life, right? Making the world palatable to one's own being, right? The language, street knowledge, fashion, right? Fashion, how I adorn myself. I'm not going to dress the way you tell me I'm going to dress. I'm going to dress the way I want to dress, right? I'm going to put on the clothes that I deem to be appropriate, no matter whatever your culture may say about it. It's okay for me to wear baggy clothes. It's all right for me to wear very colorful clothes. It's okay for me to change my hair, for me to wear my hair natural, for me to have an extreme high top. All these things. These are those things that then take hip hop just from away from the party and become an actual culture, um, and something that is easily or more easily identifiable, and something that is racially, ethnically, nationally transcendent, goes beyond, right? And so taking the world and making it something to be lived in rather than something to be survived. That I just do all this just to get by. No, I'm gonna have it my way. And this particular ethos of boldness, brashness, and arrogance is what propelled hip hop to have the boldness, to have the brashness, to start a business, to start a record company, to go into man to demand. You think about some of these, and in particular as it went along, you think about persons like Master P, who negotiated for 85%. Right? You talk about street entrepreneurialism. All right, and then P took that and worked that in all different kinds of ways. But you talk about as a rapper, and then as a businessman, P negotiated for 85% of his royalties, and Priority gave it to him because they never thought a black man, they never thought a rapper could sell enough so that that would be important. They missed that. They missed the fact that in the late 1990s, rap actually becomes the number one bought musical genre in the world. But they didn't know that when they signed P. And P took it and he made it do what it do. Right? Made millions of money. P became half a billionaire behind that 85%. And he owned his own masters. Right? He owned his own masters. So as many people that got done in by the record business, there were some who were actually able to negotiate for good. And that takes a certain boldness, a certain brashness, a certain arrogance, right? To be able to and go and negotiate and to demand 85% from somebody. That is ludicrous. You don't tell me I'm going to be able to have 85%. And you're going to put up most of the capital, if not all of the capital. It doesn't work that way, right? And that's what moves hip hop beyond the West or the South Bronx, but into a global phenomenon. These persons who in many ways, I think are related to, right? We see the historical trajectory related to Martin King and his notion, and he says, "Why we can't wait." And hip hop generation takes that and goes one step further. We're not going to march. We're not going to protest. We're just going to take, right, what we consider to be some sense of not necessarily equality, but making the world what we want it to be, right? So we'll make enough money so we can go live where we want to live, no matter what it is that you tell us that we can and cannot do. We're going to wear our own clothes. We'll create our own brands. We won't buy from you anymore. We're going to do it ourselves, right? FUBU, for us, by us, right? And so it is this brightness, this boldness that, yes, it takes hip hop beyond the West, beyond the South Bronx into a global phenomenon, but it has also uh, been that thing that has set the culture at odds with the greater American culture, right? Not only the greatest American, the greater American culture, but also religious cultures, right? In particular, let's think about the black church and the ways in which the black church interacts or does not interact with hip hop, and then other traditional centers of power because of hip hop's ability to become, right, a culture. As I mentioned in the quote yesterday, what it does, as culture does always, is that culture informs identity. In informing identity, it tells persons who they are, what they ought to seek, what they ought to think, and this erodes those who have been the vanguards for a very long time. So folk don't like that. When you come up in there and you shaking stuff up and you taking away people, you taking away power, you taking away resources, now we got an issue, right? And hip hop does all of this. It completely throws off the center of balance in the world for a whole lot of folk. So they don't like hip hop. And so this is what hip hop is. It is a boldness. It is a brashness. It is an arrogance. Todd Boyd in his book, Young, Black, Rich, and Famous, in talking about the rise of the NBA and then its connection to hip hop, goes through and he talks about the bad boy ethos, right, of the Detroit Pistons, right, and how in many ways, and the kind of music that's played alongside of, and that kind of attitude of NWA, right? This is a representation of the Detroit, even though NWA was down with the Oakland Raiders, the NWA and the Detroit Pistons are right around the same time with the same kind of attitude, right? Um, Detroit Pistons, you've got the New York Knicks, right? We're going to do it our way. We don't care what you say. Symbols of authority, right? We don't care what you have to say. F the police, right? You have also then those guys coming into the league who are saying David Stern, right? And this has even been informed by the mentality, right? The mentality of hip hop. That's what I'm getting at there in terms of this identity that is continuing to form. This is what Bakari Kitwana is getting at in his book. Jeff Chang eventually gets to it in his book. Certainly, Top Boy gets to it in this book, and it is the bucking on one hand, but then there's also the living into. This is something that we certainly need to explore some. The creation, the sustaining of the idea, perhaps of the nigga, right, and um, how then some of that boldness, that brashness, on one hand, it is instrumental in helping to create um, um, certain kinds of imaginative exercises that are positive for hip hoppers, but then also the ways in which those persons are also then viewed by the greater American culture, by those traditional centers of power, and talk about then the continued creation and sustaining of the idea of the nigga. So that's what we got for today. Hip hop, right? It is about fun, definitely about fun. Go have some fun. There are certainly some resources in the timeline for today other than this lecture. So make sure that you go and you check those things out. Make sure that you do the reading. I added another reading for you guys from Jeff Chang's book, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Excellent piece on DJ Kool Herc, and just talking about then how, right, even the beginnings of hip hop and Kool Herc and who he was and all that kind of stuff. So definitely take a look at that. There's also another little snippet of a video in there of Kool Herc. As I said, as we go on throughout this class, I'm just gonna add stuff continue to come to me, and I'll search and find and be like, oh yeah, and I'll add that stuff. So be on the lookout. Go into I made active the link section. So there's a video, there's a movie up in there. Go ahead and watch it before I sign it, because I think I actually am going to sign it. It's a documentary made by Ice-T, talking about hip hop and its growth and its change, and but really not just hip hop, so much more like rap. But it's a dope documentary. I saw it some time ago, so definitely make sure that you check that out. If you got any questions, reach out to me. If there's anything that I can do to help you, I will certainly do my best. Well, until the next time, peace, love, and hair grease.
Today's agenda, got the suitcase up in the central. Go to room 112, tell them Blanco sent you. Feel the strangers, if no money exchanges. I got these kids in ranges to leave them niggas brainless. All they told is stainless, you just remain as calm as possible. Make the deal go through. If not, here's 12 shots, we know how you do. Please make your killings clean. Slugs up in between, they eyes like true lies. Kill them and flee the scene. Just bring back the coke or the cream, or else your life is on the shelf. We mean this, Frank. The cats we fucking with put bombs in your mom's gas tank. Let's get this money, baby. They shady, we get shady. Dress up like ladies and burn them in dirty 380s. Then they come to kill our babies. That's all out. I got gats that blow the wall out. Clear them all out. Fuck the fallout. Word to stretch, I bet they pussy. The 7 digits push me. Fucking real. Here's the deal. I got 100 bricks, 14.5 a piece. Enough to cop 6, buy the house on the beach. Supply the peeps with jeeps, brick a piece. Capiche? Everybody getting cream, no one considered the leech. Think about it now, that's damn near 1.5. I kill them all, I'll be set for life. Frank, pay attention, these motherfuckers is henchmen. Renegades, if you die, they still get paid. Extra probably, fuck a robbery. I'm the boss. Promise you won't rob them, I promise. But of course, you know I have my fingers crossed. Niggas bleed just like us. Picture